Who dat to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Who Dat Say podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I am your fellow Who Dat and host, Kevin Reed. And can you smell it in the air? Can you feel it in your bones that football season is right around the corner? And I mean, right at the doorstep when training camp begins July the 29th. This is your New Orleans Saints 2026 training camp preview, and it feels good that football is finally back, especially New Orleans Saints football, to be more accurate. How is everybody doing out there, especially in the Who Dat Nation? How has the world been treating you since we last left off from last season? I know that last season was a bit of a struggle. we had such a, I don't know, rocky relationship last season. You know, you really didn't, as the season was going on, you didn't know how to feel. And I'm speaking from a personal experience. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know if Kellen Moore was the right choice, if Tyler Shuck was the guy, if this defense was going to get their act together, or the Saints destined to be cursed for another 40 years before we taste a Super Bowl again. I didn't know where the state of the Saints stood going through last season. You know, it felt like a little limbo type thing, a little purgatory, football purgatory. Like we were just stuck in neutral since the exit of Sean Payton and his regime, and Drew Brees, who is being inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame just in a few weeks here. Well deserved. The first ballot, of course. We all know it down here in the Who Dat Nation, but it's great to see him get that gold jacket. But since his exit, since Sean Payton's exit, the Saints have been in a bit of a struggle. And honestly, when you really sit back and think about it, you know, how can you bounce back from that? You had a Hall of Fame quarterback, one of the best coaches in the NFL, both leave around the same time, a year apart from each other. Of course, the Saints weren't going to live up to the glory that we had for what was it, 12 glorious years under Sean Payton and his regime, and it was going to take a while. Now, I don't know if Kellen Moore can get us back to what we experienced throughout the Sean Payton coaching experience here in New Orleans, but there is hope. There is hope. I feel more hopeful under Kellen Moore than I did under Dennis Allen, unfortunately. And this is a guy who I know if you go back and listen to my rants about Dennis Allen when he was the head coach here in New Orleans, you would think that I hate the man, I hate every fiber of his being. But the honest to God truth is, I actually loved and respected Dennis Allen. I thought Dennis Allen was a good guy. I just didn't think he was a good coach. And it showed. It really showed. Now, defensive coordinator, he was awesome here in New Orleans and currently in Chicago. Look at that defense in Chicago. My God. It is a beast, man. They are really the monsters of the Midwest again. And so that's the guy that you want on your team, but not as your head coach. But I didn't have that confidence that we used to have every Sunday for years, that no matter what the situation was, no matter who we were playing, that the Saints were going to find a way to pull it out. And I didn't feel that under DEA. Now, under Kellen Moore, I will say it took a minute last season. You know, it took a minute for it to come around, because once again, I was on board with like, man, this dude is going to be one and done here in New Orleans. I don't think his message is getting across to this team if you look at the first half of the season. But once we got into the second half of the season, Tyler Shuck got inserted into the flow of the game, into the offense as the starting quarterback, you started to feel a little different about this team. You know, they finished what was it, 4 out of the last 5 they won, and it looks like the Saints were on track, like they found something, like it started to click. The defense started to click, and everything was coming together. Yeah, did it come together late? Yes, it did. But if you really sit back and look at it in its totality, it was supposed to go this way. It was supposed to. A new head coach, new defensive coordinator, new quarterback, rookie quarterback. Everything was new. And additional players that we brought in. Everything was new system, all this. We had to learn. The team had to learn how to play together, how to work with each other, how to bounce off of each other. You had a quarterback competition at the beginning of the season. All this was going on. You know, you had injuries that popped up throughout the season, which is a given. We're going to have them this year, unfortunately, but that happens every year with every team. But there's no excuses. I look at a team like San Francisco 49ers, who every year they get decimated. And I mean decimated with injuries. And not just little, I'm trying to say this respectfully, because every position is important. Every player is important on the team. But we're not talking about the lower tier players here. We're talking top of the line players. They're quarterback, they're receivers, they're offensive line, their star tight end, their running backs. Everybody went down in Frisco, but they still find a way to win. And so Frisco really puts that moniker of an excuse, like, well, we were decimated by injuries. They really put that to bed, because they still managed to win. They find a way to win. And that's what I look at when the Saints go down with injuries, when they have key players go down. Why can't we find a way to win? Why aren't there anybody that come behind, next man up? Where is that here in New Orleans? And that's the frustrating part, because it's going to happen. Well, if you look at the roster this year, if you look at how the team is structured, and what Kellen Moore and Mickey Loomis brought in this season, this offseason, I should say, and really built depth on this roster, I feel so confident if, and I'm not wishing this on nobody, but if our star running back go down, we got another star running back waiting. If one of our star receivers go down, we have another receiver ready and rating. It just feels like this team is set up to do something special. Let me put this out there early on, and I know the Who Dat Nation. I'm a part of it, so I know that they already feel this way. I've talked to a few people, and they feel this way. Let me say this: the Saints are not going to the Super Bowl this season. Let's put that to bed. I don't want them in the Super Bowl this season, and I know that's strange to say, but I don't want them to go to the Super Bowl this season. They're not ready. They're not ready. We need to build something. If the Saints mess around, go to the Super Bowl this year, which will be great, don't get me wrong. Of course, I'm not stupid here. Yes, I will be screaming "Who Dat," losing my voice, losing my mind, if the Saints manage to pull that off this season and enjoy every minute of it. But I'm looking at the long term. I always try to look 2-3 steps ahead. I'd rather build something for the future where the Saints can compete for years, not just compete for this season and it all breaks apart. You look at a team like not the 49ers, but the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Philadelphia Eagles, just 2 years ago, they went to the Super Bowl and won it. They built a team to win now, and they won now. Last season, that same team couldn't muster it up, couldn't put it together. Now, they lost a lot of pieces last offseason, and crucial pieces, as you can see, because they didn't make it. They didn't make it back. And so I'd rather build something that's going to sustain for years to come. A la when the Saints, when Sean Payton was here, when Mickey Loomis was actually doing his job well, when we had structure, when we had a core, the team was built around Drew Brees, and we were competitive for multiple seasons, for 10 plus seasons, resulted in one Super Bowl. Unfortunately, we were robbed of one. I know for certain, just flat out robbed, but we were competitive. We were Super Bowl contenders for years, and that's what I want to get back to. I'd rather continue to build to be Super Bowl contenders instead of being division contenders, playoff contenders. I want to be a Super Bowl contender. This year, I will say this much, I feel that the Saints are a competitor for this division. I think the Saints can win this division this season, and we're going to get into it a little bit on this show, but that's about it. Getting in the playoffs, hey, maybe even winning one game in the playoffs, but I don't see the Saints going past that, but that's right now. That's before one snap. I could change. We see how it all comes together in training camp and in the preseason, in the first couple of weeks of the season. That could change on a dime. I'm like, wait, hold up. This is a Super Bowl team here. This is a team that can actually do something. It's all dependent on how they really start off this season. They got a big one, week 1. We're going to know week 1 where the Saints stand. And we're going to go over the schedule, and that's basically, let me line up the show for you. This is how we're going to break it down today in preparation for training camp starting this week. Basically, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to break down very briefly last season, and how the season ended and how we can build upon that, and how they started to build upon that through the draft this past offseason and through free agency. And we're going to go through our schedule for 2026-27 and give a kind of a rough draft prediction of how the season will go. We'll see. If you go by these national pundits who gave their off-season predictions on how everybody was going to end up this season, the Saints were Saints finished last season 11. Well, I wish. Well, 6-11, and according to some of these pundits, the Saints going to be worse this year, finishing like at 4-13 or something like that, 5-12. I don't think so. I don't think so. But we'll see. In case you don't know, this is the 60th season of the NFL. 6-0. Yes, the 60th season of the NFL, and the Saints will officially kick off the 60th season of the NFL season this Wednesday coming up, July the 29th, when training camp begins right over there on Airline at the Ochsner Sports Performance Center. And I think the public comes the next day on the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it all begins on the 29th of July. And the training camp schedule goes like this. It really begins on Thursday the 30th when they have practice, and that's going to be in helmets. The 31st, it will be shells, their practice. On August the 2nd, they will have practice. August the 3rd, August the 5th, August the 8th, and August the 9th, as well as August the 13th, which will be a joint practice with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and on the 26th of August, and that will be held at Tulane Stadium, at Human Stadium, I should say. And that will be their final practice before the season goes live. But before that, let's go back last season. Let's recap last season I know it's painful. Trust me. It was painful for me to look back on some of those moments throughout last season, especially the first half. My God, those first 9 games were brutal. That was a brutal schedule. And, I think back to when the season started last year, and I was Team Rattler all the way. I was all in on Spencer Rattler. I think I still, to this day, I still think Spencer Rattler is a good quarterback. I think he is a serviceable quarterback. Is he the second coming of Drew Brees? No. I don't think Tyler Shuck is the second coming of Drew Brees. Drew Brees is one of one. We're not going to find nobody like that. Drew Brees was phenomenal. He was one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, not just in Saints history, which isn't a high bar, but before he got here. But I'm talking NFL history overall. And that is some big shoes to fill for any quarterback who stepped foot in New Orleans. Any quarterback. And no, neither one of those guys were going to be Drew Brees. All we wanted was a quarterback that wouldn't lose a game. And I think Spencer Rattler is that type of quarterback. He's the type of quarterback that's not going to lose a game for you. The problem came in, can Spencer Rattler win you a game when you need him at the end? Is it clutch time? Is he that guy that's going to come in with that drive, that's going to orchestrate a drive at the end of a game or in the second half of a game to really come back and win it, or separate from the opponent, put that score that can put the game away? That was the question when it came to Spencer Rattler, to me. The answer is no, because he hadn't shown that, he hadn't shown that up to that point. And so we start off week one. Week one, the Saints lost to the Arizona Cardinals, 13-20. And I want you to pay attention to these first 9 games of the season. And think about these teams we played. Actually, I'm going to spoil it for you. Every team we played after week 1 was a playoff team. All were playoff teams. One was the eventual Super Bowl champion. That was your first 8 of 9 games of the season, where you coming off a season where you got a new head coach, new quarterback, new everything. And so it was going to end up like this. It was supposed to end up like this. And I said 8, it's actually 7. It's actually 7 out of the first 9 that were playoff teams. But man, it was brutal, man. Whoever put that schedule together, I don't know if they had it out for the Saints or what, but that was brutal. I mean, literally, the 2 teams that were in the Super Bowl, the Saints played within the first month of the season, or the first month and a half of the season. That was brutal. That was a brutal schedule. So, yeah, they lost to the Arizona Cardinals in week 1. They lost to the 49ers in week 1 in a tight game. They actually were competitive in that game. They got destroyed by the eventual Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks, in Seattle, 44-13. That was the worst loss of the season. And it kind of took a little of the sting out of it when the Seattle went and won the Super Bowl. To be honest with you, they were doing that to everybody else. They were. I knew then, watching that game, Seattle's on to something. Seattle is on to something. I didn't think Super Bowl at the time, but I thought they were going to be a tough team throughout it, and it turned out to be just that. After that, the Saints had to play the Buffalo Bills, a playoff team, lost that game. Saints did get their first win of the season in week 5 against the Giants. And, they got that win in spite of the offense not doing absolutely nothing. But if you look at the score, 26-14, you think, oh, man, the Saints went out there and just lit it up. No, the Giants really, honestly, gave that game away. I think they turned the ball over, 6 times or something like that? Yeah. It was the Giants just doing Giants things. But that high didn't last long. They had to take on the AFC champions in the New England Patriots. They lost that game in a tight game as well. That was a well-fought game. And then they traveled to Chicago, the revenge game for Dennis Allen. And the Bears defeated the Saints 26-14. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-3. That was a slacking. That was the final go round for Mr. Tyler Shuck as our starting quarterback at that point. And, you know, it needed to happen. I think he turned the ball over 3 times in that game. He just lost it. At that point, it was time. It was time. The pressure got to him, and he couldn't handle it. And so the Tyler Shuck era began in Week 9 against the Rams, and we lost, understandably so. It was the Rams. Wasn't too, surprised by that, even though it was a slacking. They lost by, 20-something points? It was 34-10. Yeah, 24 points. So, yeah, it was brutal. But the Saints did bounce back the following week, Week 10, when they defeated the Carolina Panthers 17-7, had their bye week in Week 11. In Week 12, the Saints took on the Atlanta Falcons. We lost that game. The Miami Dolphins in Week 13, we lost that game. And this was when it all turned around. Saints went on a tear, a 4-game winning streak, when they defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Jets, and the Tennessee Titans, only to fall in the final game of the season to the Atlanta Falcons and end up with a 6-11 schedule. Not schedule, but record of that season. So, it started off rough, ended easy, but it was a rough schedule in the beginning. And it was an easy schedule at the end. They went from playing every single playoff team to playing no playoff teams. And you saw how the differences in the competition was. And that's why it's kind of hard to really dissect, is this team for real? Even when they went on that little 4-game win streak, is this team for real? Because, Tampa is Tampa. Carolina, yeah, they did win the division, but we swept them. We swept Carolina, and they won the division in spite of that. We swept them with the worst team in the division. And that goes to show you how weak the NFC South is. The Jets are still horrible. So they are who they are. And Tennessee was worse off than us. So you really can't really get too over the moon excited about that run that the Saints went on, in the grand scheme of it all. But it was great to see. It was great. It's something to build on. And now, the one thing that bothers me, that really hurts throughout last season, is not the 6-11 schedule. It wasn't the fact that, we lost a lot of players due to injury last season and so on and so forth. No, the one thing that bothers me is the fact that we got swept by the Atlanta Falcons. That's the only thing that makes me mad. Now, the last game, I'm actually glad we lost that game because that meant Tampa couldn't go to the playoffs. Yeah, that's how it all shaped out at the end. The division was so bad that the 2 top teams in the division were hoping that the 2 worst teams in the division would help each other get the other in the playoffs. If Atlanta win, Carolina wins the division. If the Saints win, Tampa win the division. That's how crazy the NFC South was last season. And so my hatred for Tampa, it kind of won me over, even though I didn't want to beat Atlanta. I didn't want to lose to Atlanta, but it is what it is. It we'll bounce back from that. Hopefully we'll get our revenge this season. But that's how the season left off. So, like I said, we had something to build on. So what were the building blocks to put in place to help this team get to that next level? Saints entered the draft. Saints had the 8th overall pick in the draft. in the first round. Where do we go? A lot of people were saying, hey, do we get another quarterback? Well, that made no sense. Plus, this wasn't a quarterback-heavy draft, just like last season. Last season quarterback class wasn't all that, but whatever. We just got the guy, and he finished pretty strong, so it was no reason to go after a quarterback. Yes, we need help on defense. We need help. We need help all over the field. There's no point listed. We needed help all over the field, so where do the Saints go? Who did they use that number 8 pick on? I was of the mind, trade it. Let's trade back, get more picks. Let's build. Let's build. But if you was going to use it, you need to hit a home run with that number 8. And it's too early to tell. But right now, it seems like a good pickup. At the number 8 pick in the draft, the Saints selected Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State. I'm real confident that this dude is going to be something special. The one problem, which is always a problem when it comes to the Saints and their draft picks, he's hurt. He was hurt in college. He gets hurt a lot. I don't know why we always select these injured players out of college, but whatever. May I direct your attention to Kendra Miller? He stayed hurt in college, and look at the results now. And, so it's getting kind of tiresome of getting these injury-prone players. But when Jordan Tyson is healthy, he is a force to be reckoned with. He is a true number 1 when he is healthy. So let's pray that he stays healthy throughout his career. Same thing with Chris Olave. Now, this is a contract year for Chris Olave. So, hey, is Jordan Tyson the replacement, or is Jordan Tyson the complement? We'll see. It's all up to Chris Olave. Chris Olave had a real good season last season. He finished with over 1,000 yards receiving. And so we'll see. We'll see. And so we get into the second round. Saints selected Christian Miller, defensive tackle out of Georgia. That dude's an animal. That dude's an animal. I don't know if you've seen any highlights or any games of him. He's an animal, a real good pick from the New Orleans Saints. In the third round, the Saints addressed their tight end woes by selecting Oscar Delp out of Georgia again. And Oscar Delp, I didn't know much about him. I seen little highlights of him, but I didn't really pay attention to him, previous to the draft. And now after they selected him, of course, I went to research him more. Man, that dude is good. He is a prototypical tight end. He does it all. He can block, he can run routes, he can catch, and he can run after the catch. All around, I am excited for that pick. That is probably my sleeper pick out of this entire draft class for the New Orleans Saints. Watch out for Oscar Delp. In the fourth round, the Saints had 2 picks in the fourth round. The first pick in the fourth round, they selected a guard. Much needed, addressing that need with Jeremiah Wright out of Auburn. Yeah, there are a lot of SEC, you see. They stayed in the SEC, something that didn't happen under Sean Payton, which is real weird. I don't know why he avoided the SEC. But anywho's, that needed to be addressed because, God bless him, Cesar Ruiz. Look, I'm not saying this. Pro Football Focus is saying this. The worst graded offensive lineman in the league. Need I say more? Glad we addressed that. We need another body there and move on from that Ruiz pick from a few years ago. The second pick in the fourth round, the Saints selected Bryce Lance, wide receiver out of Dakota State or North Dakota State. Didn't know much about him either. I had to look him up. He's a speedster. He probably can be a great contributor on special teams or whatever. Who knows? He might get inserted into the starting lineup. Who knows? We'll see about that pick. Like I said, didn't know much about him. Still don't know too much about him, but the little that I did research on him, he does look good, you know. So we'll see how he works out here. In the 5th round, the New Orleans Saints selected Lorenzo Styles Jr., safety from Ohio State. They had to get a Buckeye. You know, the Saints had to get a Buckeye in here, some shape, form, or fashion. 6th round, the Saints selected Barton Brown, the wide receiver from LSU. We all seen him, especially down here in Louisiana. We know what he is and what he's about. Very good pickup, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked that he fell to the 6th round. I really am. I thought he would be higher than that, but I'm glad he fell into our laps at that spot. And our final pick in this year's draft, the Saints selected T.J. Hall, cornerback out of Iowa. So what impressed me about this draft, the Saints got mainly needs, but some real good wants. And I think a lot of good players fell into the Saints' lap that can contribute now on this team. And I'm excited to see how this all comes about. But that's not the only additions this offseason that the New Orleans Saints made. This was the most impressive that I think that the Saints have. The Saints go into the offseason every year, number one, over the cap. And so it's never any excitement that the Saints are going to make any moves or sign any players that's going to contribute, because the Saints never had money. This was the first year the New Orleans Saints went into the offseason under the cap, with plenty of money under the cap, and can address some real big needs, fill some holes, fill some gaps for this team. And bruh, when I say they fill some gaps, they fill some gaps. Speaking of the guards, addressing that, you know, they drafted Jeremiah Wright, but they also signed David Edwards, guard, to a 4-year contract. I think he was one of the highest rated offensive linemen in free agency. Saints went and snatched him day one. Also on day one, Saints snatched up another running back, and he's a beast. Coming back to Louisiana, you have Travis Etienne Jr. on a 4-year deal. Bruh, this is money. The Saints have been struggling for several years with this running back situation. And, you know, we got Alvin Kamara, but Alvin Kamara, as much as I love him to death, he's not a carry the load running back. And when I say that, I mean a season long, 17 games straight, just ground and pound running back. He hasn't proven that. He is a weapon. He's one of the biggest weapons in the league, but he's getting up there in age. He's getting hurt more often now, and it's not consistent. So the Saints, over the past couple of years, they've drafted running backs. They drafted Devin Neal. They drafted Kendre Miller. They brought in Jason Williams. They just keep addressing this, and they can't get it together. They cannot get it together, and it's not their fault. It's just not working out. The guys they bringing in just not working out. I think Travis Etienne Jr. will be a home run hit for the New Orleans Saints at running back. You have somebody who basically can do everything that Alvin Kamara do, but he's younger for one. And I'm not saying do everything Alvin Kamara can do as far as replacing Alvin Kamara. Thankfully, the Saints did restructure Alvin Kamara. We do have him for one more year. Alvin Kamara this is probably it for him. This is probably his Cinderella season as a New Orleans Saint. But this will be a big year for Alvin Kamara, because that's help. That's help. You can split time, keep each other healthy, and that's the big thing. And keep in mind, you still have some running backs on this roster as well. You still have Neal. You still have Miller. You still have what's the other brother name who came in late last season? Imitate, I believe that's how you say his name. He was great. Now are all these running backs gonna stay on the team? Probably not, because the Saints signed another one. They signed Ty Chandler as well, the running back, just a few months ago. So they got a lot of running backs. I don't think all of them are going to be on the team at the start of the year, but we have a plethora there. We also brought back Caden Ellis, linebacker, after losing a great linebacker in Demario Davis this offseason. And I think this was probably the greatest replacement you can ever think of. Caden Ellis was really good here when he was here the first round. I enjoyed him, but he was stuck on special teams, couldn't get on the field, and couldn't contribute. I thought he had potential to be a replacement back then, but we lost him to free agency, of course, and he went to Atlanta and just tore it up. It was like him and oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? Who went to Philly? Almost won Defensive Player of the Year over there in Philly. Oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, I'm pretty sure y'all can leave a comment and to let me know, and remind me if I don't remember before the end of the show. But anyways, those brothers left the Who Dat Nation, went to greener pastures, and actually tore up the league. If Caden Ellis comes back with that same energy that he had in Atlanta, we got something, man. I mean, Demario Davis, as much as we just gonna miss his leadership. Now his play, it diminished. He's getting older. He wasn't as good as he was in the past, the last couple of seasons, and that's because of him slowing down. I mean, we all getting. I'm old. I'm slowing down. I'm not as limber as I once was. So it happens. You can't beat Father Time. But Caden Ellis, great contribution to come back. Signed him to a 3-year contract to return home. Noah Fant, tight end, signed to a 2-year deal. We were trying to get him last year. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was a money thing. I don't know what happened, but we couldn't get him last season. But hey, good things happen to those who wait. We got him this year, once again addressing that tight end issue that we had, and I think that that was a good pickup as well. Let's not forget, you still got Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson, I think him and Tyler Shuck work well together. I mean, they went to college together. They were roommates in college together, so they have a rapport. So that's there, but you still need your prototypical tight end. I think we have that. And then we lost Foster Monroe to free agency, so you needed those little gaps filled. So that was a good pickup. We signed a punter in Ryan Wright to a 4-year contract. Re-signed John Ridgway III, the defensive tackle, who he couldn't. We signed him and he was hurt. We signed him and he got hurt, and he couldn't really get on the field. But let's see how he works out fully healthy. Fingers crossed. And the Saints signed they signed Zach Wilson, the quarterback. And now I get why they signed him, because you need a veteran in the locker. You need a veteran quarterback. Zach Wilson is not what I would go to, but whatever. He's been in the league. He knows the league. Zach Wilson is not here to challenge Tyler Shuck for his job. That's not going to happen. He's just here as a veteran. I felt they should have signed a veteran last season. You had too young of players in that quarterback room. I mean, Tyler Shuck was a rookie. Spencer Rattler was on his second year. What was the other quarterback name? He was on his second year. It was too much youth there. No leadership. Not granted, Kellen Moore was a former quarterback, so technically you had a veteran quarterback, but you needed a veteran. You needed a veteran in that room, point blank period. And the Saints did not have that. They also signed defensive back Terrell Burgess was I felt was a good pickup as well. So let's go over the schedule. Let's go over the upcoming year and who we're playing, when we playing, where we playing at, and find out just right now without seeing these guys on the field, without knowing what the lineup is, who's starting at what position, and this, that, and the third. This is just for fun. We'll give our official predictions later on as we start to round down training camp in about a month or so. But just early on, just to put it out there, let's start off this preseason on August the 15th when the Saints play the Jacksonville Jaguars. On August the 22nd, my daughter's birthday, the Saints will play the LA Rams. On August the 28th, the Saints will play the Cowboys. And that will be it for the preseason. You know, it's only 3 games now. And so let's jump in to the regular season as the New Orleans Saints begin the regular season week 1, September the 13th in Detroit, in Motor City, as they take on the Detroit Lions. This is going to be the litmus test that I was talking about earlier. This is going to tell it all. Is the Saints for real? Are they here for entertainment purposes? Or are the Saints really, really, really going to contend not only for this division, but in the playoffs? Because this is a playoff team that they're traveling on the road week 1 to face. I am so excited for week 1 because that's going to dictate my mood for the entire season. So we're going to do it like this. Week 1 against the Lions, I think the Saints will lose. They travel to Baltimore on September the 20th in week 2 to take on the Ravens. I think the Saints win that game. The Ravens aren't the Ravens they used to be. You know, they lost their coach and John Harbaugh. Even before he left, that team, it just looks like they don't look the same. And I think that it's going to be a different type of team, not as dominant of a team that they were over the past 10 plus years or so. Saints come out victorious. The Saints have their first home game on September the 27th. Yeah, September the 27th against the Raiders. I think the Saints win that game. And week 4, the Saints have their first Monday Night Football game in 2 years as they play the Atlanta Falcons at home. Boy, that dome's going to be rocking. You remember after Katrina, that first home game, first game back, Monday Night Football against Atlanta, that just kick-started the era of Sean Payton and Drew Brees, that just dominated the NFC South. Can this be it? Can history repeat itself on October the 5th, Monday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons? I'm going to say, yeah. I think the Saints win that game. I think the emotions would be there. I think the fire would be there, especially after being swept last season by this team. And don't know why. Atlanta is not going to be the same team either. Atlanta lost a lot. They lost their head coach. They got Kevin Stefanski, I think, is the new head coach over there. And I was never really sold on Kevin Stefanski as a head coach. Is he good? Yeah, he's a good head coach. I don't think he's that guy, you know, and he don't have the same pieces he had in Cleveland. So I don't, if he couldn't do nothing with what he had in Cleveland, I don't think he's going to do anything in Atlanta either. But I digress. We move on to week 5, and the New Orleans Saints will host the Minnesota Vikings October the 11th. I think the Saints lose that game. Minnesota is a really good team. Going to be hard to say that Saints get past Minnesota as it stands right now. The Saints will take on the New York Giants yet again, this time in New York on October the 18th. I think the Saints win that game against New York Giants in week, what's this, 7? Yeah, week 7, the Saints will travel to Old Paris, France, for the international game when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers on October the 25th. This is going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be fun and exciting. It's going to be a home game because of the connection with New Orleans and France and the Florida League and all this other stuff. The first game ever, first NFL game ever in Paris. And I think it's going to be riled up and emotional and all that good stuff. I think the Saints come out victorious. I think really the Steelers, even though they got Mike McCarthy, Aaron Rodgers coming back. Aaron Rodgers is an old man. Old man walking. He I don't know why he came back for this final year. I know he wants to kind of leave on top. It's not going to happen. In Pittsburgh is just not that team no more. They're not that ferocious team that you used to fear playing, It's just not there anymore. Plus, I got personal stakes in that. I have 2 nephews who are Steelers fans, and every year I gotta hear it. I gotta hear it from them, and so we finally lock horns this season. Oddly enough, off of U.S. soil, but the Saints win that game. The Saints will play the Cleveland Browns on November the 8th, and this will be back at home. I think the Saints beat the Cleveland Browns. We don't know where the Cleveland Browns are at right now. We don't even know who the starting quarterback is. Is it going to be Shador? Is it going to be Watson? Who knows? I think it's going to be Watson, though. If he's healthy, because they're still paying him a boatload, I think it's going to be Watson. But they lost Myles Garrett. They don't look like the same team. Even when they were the same team, they were bad. So I think the Saints can beat the Cleveland Browns. On November the 15th, the Saints will play the Carolina Panthers. I think we split with Carolina this season after sweeping them last season. I don't know where the split going to come in at, but I'll say the Saints win this one since it's at home. On November the 22nd, I think this one is also going to be a tough one. We travel back to Chicago yet again, and it's going to be cold. It's going to be cold, and who knows, middle of November, it could be snowing up there. Who knows? But the rematch from last season, Dennis Allen yet again. I don't know. I think the Bears come out victorious again. I think the Bears found their footing last season, and it looks like they're on the road to dominating the NFC, at least for a little while, until the Saints get their act together. But the Saints will drop their 3rd game against the Chicago Bears. Next week, the Saints on November the 29th will take on the Cincinnati Bengals. Who dat versus who they? And so we're going to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow maybe will be playing. I don't know. He's hurt every year. I'm not wishing it on him. I'm just observing it every year. But I don't know. I can't put a finger on them either. I don't know what to say when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals. They got everything you need to be a Super Bowl contending team. They just can't get it together. Whether it's injuries or just flat out bad luck, they cannot muster it together. But it's early on, so who cares? I'm gonna say the Saints win that game. I think the Saints will beat them. Moving over to December the 6th, the Saints will host the Packers, the Green Bay Packers. I think the Saints lose that. Green Bay is one of those teams. They're just good. Matt LaFleur always has his team ready to play, and they are always a tough out for the Saints. And I don't know. We're getting towards the end of the season. That's normally when Green Bay starts to get their act together and and starts putting together a string of wins to make that push to the playoffs. I think the Saints fall to the Packers there. On December the 13th, the Saints will have their second matchup against the Panthers. Like I said, they split, so that's going to be the loss in Carolina. The next week on December the 20th, the Saints will play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that will be a win. Saints will defeat Tampa. And on 2 days after Christmas, December the 28th, the Saints will play the Arizona Cardinals in the Dome. I think the Saints come out victorious yet again this week. And the first game of 2027 on January the 3rd, the Saints will play the Atlanta Falcons. Saints will beat the Falcons in Atlanta. And we end the season against Tampa at home on January the 10th. I think the Saints lose that game. And so that puts the New Orleans Saints in my early, just playful, fun prediction. This isn't etched in stone here, but I think the Saints right now are at 11-6 on the season. I know that's shooting for the moon there, but honestly, just looking at this schedule, it's not a quote unquote hard schedule, but it's not an easy one either. The Saints going to have to come with their A game to really get this 11-win season. So I think it's possible. And I can also, to be 100% honest, I can also see it flip the other way. I can see the Saints ending the season 6-11 as well. If things fall a different way. So it's really up to this team. It's really up to Kellen Moore to get this team up to play. And I think with the pieces we brought in, the players we brought in, and how we ended last season with the momentum we have coming into this season, I really, really believe with my whole heart. This isn't black and gold talking. This is football fan talking. I'm speaking out of logic. I think the Saints are capable of putting together 10-11 wins this season and possibly winning the NFC South. But that's just me talking. Action speaks louder than words. We'll see when the Saints start to take the field this upcoming season, and it all begins Wednesday, July the 29th, when the Saints hit the training camp field and begin preparation for this upcoming 60th NFL football season. We'll find out, baby. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm so happy that football is back. You know how bad it's been. You know how bad it's been waiting on football. I actually cheered for the New York Knicks to win. I was so invested in that. And I can't stand the Knicks. But I was just swept up in any type of sports. And I was happy for the Knicks winning the NBA championship. I was so anticipating football to come back. I got into the FIFA World Cup. I don't watch soccer or football. I don't watch it. But I was invested in it because I needed sports. I needed something to cheer. And now, finally, I got something I can legitimately cheer for, get excited for, and that is New Orleans Saints football. I want to know, everybody out there in the Who Dat Nation, are you excited for this upcoming season? What are you looking for? What areas are you focused on? Are you focused on Tyler Shuck entering his sophomore year? Are you worried that he's going to have a sophomore slump that is generally associated with quarterbacks in their second year? Are you focusing on this running back competition between Etienne and Kamara and everybody else there? Or are you looking forward to seeing what Jordan Tyson is going to do at wide receiver and all of the other pieces that we have in that wide receiving core? I'm excited to see Jalen Polk I want to see how that works out. You remember him from last season? We signed him, and he was on IR. We signed him or traded for him, I should say. And I'm like, why did we trade for a player that's on IR? But prior to him going on IR, he was a true number one receiver. And so we got that going for us, in addition to Olave and Verley and Johnson and all of the other pieces that we already have in place. Man, there are so many weapons for Tyler Shuck to play with, man. Can't wait. But I want to know your thoughts. You can subscribe to the KBRadioNetwork.com website, where you can get updated on all of our content over there. Also on YouTube, you can subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video while you're there. If you don't mind, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Who That Say podcast here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we preview this upcoming season and training camp as we prepare for the New Orleans Saints to take the field for this upcoming season. Oh man, I'm so excited that football is back. And man, I am so happy to finally be able to scream at the top of my lungs and not look crazy doing it in the middle of July. But I got a legitimate reason to scream. Who that?